Hey everybody, Dan and Mike, we are back here in the den. I'm Mike. We got Dan on the other end.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm still in Maryland. You're over there in Carolina.
Yeah, this is an interesting podcast here. I'm in North Carolina, Dan's in Maryland. We're sort of going around and about to get this thing together for you guys. So if it is a little fishy on the audio, bear with us. We're doing sort of FaceTime and everything we can do.
We're doing the best we can, which is not quite as good as second graders nowadays.
Yeah, I think some of the kids in my class probably could do a better job at getting a podcast together.
100% chance. I would take that bet any day of the week.
Right. So, anyways,
today we're gonna wrap up the dessert bracket. We finally have a champion, an overwhelming champion as well. So we'll get into that, and then we will concentrate on the PGA Championship, the fourth and final major. I'm excited. I can't wait to watch a little golf this weekend. I actually might play a little golf this weekend.
Oh, you slacker.
I know.
Lucky son of a
we'll
bitch.
preview the course. It's Quail Hollow, which has been the host for the Wells Fargo. Mike and I will pick some winners, value bets that we think have a decent shot at coming through. And then we've each constructed a couple DraftKings lineups in which I'm going to win the Millionaire Maker this weekend. I don't know about, well, you're not because you're not in it.
No, I didn't put my money in the Millionaire Maker.
Yeah, because you're cheap. But so we'll go over lineups. I have a cash lineup versus a GPP lineup, so I'll differentiate that, and then we'll go over some value plays as well. Why we think guys at the bottom of the tiers can make a difference.
The podcast today is probably the highlight of my week because we've been here 4 days and it's rained 4 consecutive days.
Where are you again?
So we are in the Outer Banks in Avon. All electricity is up and running, but there's just been a stalled front sitting over us, so it's been like hour by hour. We'll go out to the beach for 10 minutes. We'll come back in. We'll go to the pool. Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
So
your life consists of waking up, having breakfast, going to the beach, going to the pool, watching TV, and drinking beer, and you want us to feel sorry for it?
I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But
go after yourself.
I think with the PGA, it's just like I told you before. It's a major, and as we know before, I love majors. But at the exact same time, it's one of those that, and the PGA even announced this week that they'll be changing the PGA Championship and they'll move it to May starting in 2019 because for some of the reasons that we talked about, a lot of people forget about it in August. They're going to move the Players Championship from May back to March. So a lot of people are going to have to get their golf in from February until July, and then once August comes, all the tournaments are done at the big one. So I thought that was pretty interesting news.
I think that makes sense. I give them credit. The PGA does get lost in the year. The majors are supposed to be the most important tournaments, even bigger than the Players. So now you smack it between the Masters and the U.S. Open, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a little bit of an itch between April and June, so you get that itch. And then if you're a golf fanatic, you watch the Players Championship, which is still a very big tournament with a lot of stars in it. And so you still have that come vacation time at the end of the year. I like it. I like the move. I think it's a good move.
It'll be interesting. You got to mix it up sometimes because you just never know. Some people just get bored with waiting till August, and especially now you got football starting, and I think people are more in tune to that. So,
I agree too. I mean, as far as the majors itself goes, it's the kissing your sister major.
Yeah,
but it's still a major. These guys want to win this as much as they want to win anything to put their name in history books. So,
well, I think the most exciting thing this week is I'm not a fan of his, as I've told you before, but I just want to see Jordan Spieth possibly get the 4 majors before he's 24. I think that'd be fantastic. Even though I don't like him.
Why would it be fantastic? I don't want Spieth to win another major.
I think it'd just be fun. I'm a front runner for people in history. I like to see history made. I don't really care who it is. I was a huge Tiger fan. I am a Tiger fan, but it was awesome to see him just run through and do what he did to the PGA because it was breaking history. And 10, 15, 30 years from now, I can tell my kids, my grandkids, hey, I was around. I saw that stuff. So I'm a fan of history when it comes to sports.
I got you. I'm rooting for. I want to see Rahm win it. I think I'm picking Rahm to win it. We'll get into that a little bit later. He's my boy, so I want to see Rahm win it. After that, I think it'd be fun to see McIlroy get another after all the the criticisms he gets for just not quote unquote caring anymore.
Right.
But he still finishes top 5. It seems like in every event. And then You got Decky, who just absolutely destroyed the field last week at the Bridgestone.
Right.
And he's another one I'm rooting for since, the Japanese golfers can't win majors.
I think you're doing that just for me.
And Ricky Fowler. Ricky's grown on me over the last few years. I like to see him get one, even if this is the one that no one cares about, to get it off his back, which is kind of crazy. I was listening to a broadcast the other day about just like how much we criticize these 24 to 28-year-olds for not having won yet.
Right.
But the majors back in the day was something that usually guys didn't win until they were 30, and not some of it's mental, but other parts of it is or are that their games just aren't there yet. Not even the mental side. The ability to put together the driving with the ball striking, with the putting, with the round, all together, and round after round. It often didn't happen until after 30 years old.
But shoot, you look at these kids that are putting it together. Like the Tigers, like the Spieths.
Right.
I mean, it's incredible.
Right. So they're the new trendsetters, and then you have a guy like Fowler, who's an incredible pro. I mean, a very, very, very good player, one of the top 10 players in the world. But he gets kind of, he's the one that's now getting asked on because he doesn't have one yet, And it's like he may not win one for another 3 or 4 years, and then he may run off 2 or 3 of them.
Well, I think I told you in a podcast prior, I think he's going to have the sort of same trajectory as Mickelson did, winning in his early 30s and then really letting that early to mid to late 30s be his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think that's I think it's perfectly fine. I guess what I'm saying is we push these, our expectations as guys are so high to have them win as soon as they hit the tour. Even John Rahm, like I love John Rahm and watching him play and how long he is off the tee. And, but the guy's like 25 years old, and like I said, there's a mental aspect, but also the rest of his game just may not be there yet, And the fact that he doesn't win it now doesn't mean he's not a good player. I just think we all expect, if you want to be quote unquote great, you gotta win as early as Speed or as early as Tiger, and that's not really the case.
I told the wife, I said, hey, I'm only about 5-6 hours from Charlotte. It's raining down here all the time. Can I just go to Charlotte and go see the PGA?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Knock that off my bucket list, and I'm good. I will have 3 of the 4 majors watched.
When are you coming home?
Sunday.
You should definitely go.
I know.
Either Thursday or Friday.
I know. She said no on that, so I'll try again after the podcast. We'll see. But talking about that in Charlotte, Quail Hollow has been since 2013 the home of the Wachovia Championship.
No.
Wells Fargo. Sorry, Wells Fargo. I knew it was a W. I'm sorry. I knew that. Excuse me. It's my weekly mistake. We should just put that on a board and see how many mistakes I make. So anyways, the Wells Fargo Championship, oddly enough, it was postponed this year and it was moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, where I was from, for a while, and on the golf course that I had wanted to play for days and days, but I never could get on. But, so anyways, Quail Hollow, this is one of the few tournaments that we can look back and we can say there's past history, there are guys who have played well here, and really the only other major you can do that with is the Masters, or if you want to say as the 5th major, the Tour Players Championship, there at Sawgrass. So I think there's a lot of background that we'll be able to sort of knock into today, but then as you've said before, they have done a lot of changing with the course, so there's a possibility that that's going to sort of be thrown out of the water. It really doesn't matter. So we'll have to go ahead and we'll take a look at that. So what are some things that you saw that they've done to change the course this year for the PGA?
What have I seen? Well, I mean,
what have you read? I'm sorry, not seen.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just go back to it hosts the Wells Fargo for X amount of years, right? So you got course history there. I mean, you got guys who played there year after year, and some of them have had yearly success, right? So I think when you're going to pick your winner or who you're going to root for or your DraftKings lineup, you got to look at that pretty in depth. But they've made some changes, and those changes, I think I was looking at something like the first and second hole is one. Let me see. Yeah, they've added Bermuda grass. The greens are different, so they're completely different surface as far as
very fast from what I was reading.
Right.
Even some players were saying too fast.
So yeah, there's been a couple hole changes. I want to say the new first hole, I think is what it was, and the 4th and the 5th were a par 5 5th, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The old par 5 5th has become the new par 4 4th and 5th. So I guess what I'm saying is you still have probably 60% of the course is similar or the same, but you have 4 or 5 holes that are going to be different. When Rory hits his tee shot out there, it's going to be a different look and a different lie, a different distance than what he's been used to in the past. So, I while researching and preparing for this weekend, and both, looking at value bets for winners and DraftKings lineups, I weighted heavily on the course history, but I had to take it with a grain of salt just because of the changes. So
yeah, and after you'd spoken to me about that, I had to take it with a grain of salt too, because I had looked in the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, and some players that just kept coming up were people like Rory, and Phil. Phil is one of the guys that has been there in the top 10, top 15 for the last 4, 5, 6 years. In 2013, I want to say, or it might have been, 2013, at Quail Hollow, Rory, Ricky, and Phil sort of had a duel there going back and forth, and Rory eventually pulled that one out. So there are players here that do a very good job, and we'll get into that in a few minutes with some of our picks here. But that was really.
I think everything starts with Rory, right?
It does. I think it does. I think he's the hot guy coming in. From what I was reading, from what I've seen the last couple weeks, his driver is really on point. This being a very long course, and they said it's even going to get longer with the weather. The weather does not look good for the next 4 days, so it's going to be really wet, and it's going to take away from that very fast, track that they were thinking of, and it's going to make this longer for the players. But they said that Rory is really coming into his own in these last couple of tournaments, and
Rory's finished 5th and 4th the last 2 weeks, so Rory's back.
Right.
He does have those occasional 2 or 3 stretch holes where he puts up bogey, double or something. It seems like it eliminates him every tournament. He had it at the British Open. What did he start? He started something like plus.
He was like plus 4, plus 5, yeah.
Like 6 holes
Terrible.
Or something. And in the end, he still finished, I think, 4th in the tournament.
Right.
So if he doesn't have those blow-up holes, and you can't take him away because they happen, but he's still one of the best, if not the best player in the world. It's just a matter of can he get it together for 72 holes as opposed to 67 holes this time around. But these are his last 5 finishes at Quail Hollow. Last year he was 4th. Before that he won it. He finished 8th in 2014, 10th in 2013, and 2nd in 2012. He's finished in the top 10 each of the last 5 years at Quail Hollow. So I think it begins and ends with Rory McIlroy. Like his odds are short, so if you're going to bet on him and he wins, good for you. But if you're going to have a whole bunch of other bets out there, his might just cover whatever else you have.
Yeah, he's a 9-1 as of yesterday.
7-1 now.
7-1. Wow. Okay, jumped up. Good.
So anyway, so for me, everything, and then you also mentioned, so he's good off the tee.
Right.
Obviously. So for me, everything beyond just looking at Rory, like Rory's the anchor for one of my lineups. But you mentioned length. Okay, so it was going to be a bomber's course anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, they're going to have to drive it far and somewhat accurate. But now that it's supposed to rain Thursday through Sunday, at least part of each day,
right,
it's going to slow down the track so much that it's such an advantage now to have bombers, on your DraftKings teams or, the winners that you're going to take. So you're not, if you were looking at value of somebody who like Matt Kuchar, who's not long off the tee, his odds don't look as sexy as they did, maybe a week ago. So based on his form.
Yeah, I think right now he's a 33-1 favorite from what I saw as of yesterday.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think he was like 33, 35.
And then you also have to look at, the last couple of tournaments and,
Kuchar's 70-1.
71, wow. Okay, well then I'm off a little bit. I was looking at one of my sites and it was 33, but maybe that was from a few days ago. But, anyways, Hideki, even going back to the British Open where, he played relatively well and then, last week just came and lights out with the, WGC event. And, coming into this weekend, he probably is one of those top 5 players that people are going to be looking to, not only betting-wise, but just, picking to come out and finally break that curse of a, Asian golfer, winning a major. I don't know why you laugh at that. I'm not saying anything wrong. He is Asian.
I know he's Asian. I'm just saying. You said it you said a couple podcasts ago. Asian golfers can't win it.
I believe. They just have not had that chance. Maybe he's the guy to break through, and good for him.
He's playing as well as anybody right now.
Yes.
He's long enough off the tee. He's
Yeah.
not one of the premier bombers, but he's long enough off the tee, and he's accurate. His ball striking's good. The one thing he's not real good at is putting. But his putters started to come together recently. So if his putter does what it did at WGC, he's going to be one of those final tee times on Sunday. I firmly
and I think
that.
with the WGC, I they also spoke about at the end. I watched the coverage to the end, and one of the big thing was it wasn't like he was playing the Canadian Open or he was playing some Open where there was maybe 15 guys. I mean, the WGC event, you had a ton of players who are going to be playing this week, so it's not like he was playing against a bunch of Dan Goolsby's and Mike Giffords out there. He's playing against some of the top golfers. So,
49 of the top 50 golfers were there. The only guy that wasn't was Sneds, who had to withdraw. And by the way, Sneds withdrew again.
Right. So I think that helps him because he's got to fend off those guys. And I'm sorry, I don't care if you agree or not, but when you're going against the likes of the top 50 golfers, it's a completely different thing as opposed to him going over and playing the Japan Open where there's guys there that are not playing up to the caliber that Hideki plays.
Correct. Here's the thing, Hideki's gone through a couple of stretches in his career where he's just been unstoppable. And it's not just on in foreign tournaments. It's been stuff here on US soil, big name tournaments. He just hasn't won a major yet. So it seems if you look at his track record, his ebbs and flows, when he's going, he happens to go top five, wins an event, finishes second, top five, wins another event. And then he comes back down to earth for a little bit and might finish 30th, may miss a cut here and there, but then when he regroups, he goes through these stretches of just like what we talked about Rory having for the last 5 years at Quail Hollow. Decky will do that for 5 or 6 tournaments just in a row, and I think he's in the middle of that now. He didn't play amazingly we talked about
at the British. No.
But he didn't play poorly either.
No.
So I'm taking a look at it now. He finished T14. Before that, at the Irish Open, he was T14. At the U.S. Open, he was T2. And then
he's right there,
WGC.
right.
So he's finished no worse than 14th the last 4 tournaments, including a tie for second in a major and a number one in the win at a big money tournament with 49 top 50 golfers. So I like Decky a lot. He's another one that's on one of my teams this week.
Right.
So.
Well, let's take a pause real quick with the players and let's go back to the golf course. We talked about it long, and they were trying to make it super fast. They said that the rough is not going to be U.S. Open rough, but it is going to be different. The whole grass was pulled out and changed to a different. They went from Bermuda to, and I forget what I read, but it's a different type of. I think they went to a bent. Or maybe they went to the Bermuda bent. I forget which one it was, but they switched everything out, so it's completely different than what they've played on before. But I went through and I looked at all 18 holes, and to me, they do say coming down the stretch is a tough stretch, but I looked at the top 4 holes, in my opinion, as I went through, and all of them, 3 of the 4 that I picked occur on the front 9. But my number 4 hole was number 10. It's the longest par 5 out there. And I think this will be a key hole for the golfers to go ahead and see, the big bombers like the Koepkas, like the Dustin Johnsons. Are they going to be able to make up shots on this compared to the other guys who can't? To me, close to 600 yards in a par 5, that's going to be a huge, exciting hole to see players go and play. Number 9, right before that's a 504 par 4. Which, I mean, crazy enough, being 500 yards par 4 would take us forever to get there. But these guys, they bomb it and they get it close. But they're probably on that layup are going to have to hit some type of, very, either a 5-wood, 3-wood, or maybe knocking a, 4-iron or somewhere in that. They're going to have a long iron, short wood to get there in 2 if they want to. The number 6 hole, I think, is the second one that I'll be interested to see. It's the longest par 3, 249. And just to watch these guys have to put 249 yards out there and put it directly on the pin or somewhere close will be interesting to me. And then the number 1 hole, for the whole thing will be that first hole. Starting off at 224 yards, a par 4, another super long par 4 that again used to be, like you said, 2 holes put together. So those are my top 4 holes that I think that'll be interesting for anyone watching just to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I didn't break down holes. But as I mentioned, the fact that the course is so long, what you're going to see over and over again is that your approach shots for these guys are going to be longer irons than you're used to. You're not going to have bombers knocking it into pitching wedge 9-iron range. So you're going to have to, if you're focusing on picking winners this week, you got to have guys that are good from 175 to 200 yards out,
right?
Because that's where they're going to be coming from, and I don't think it's going to be a birdie fest. I don't think we're going to see 20 under win it. I think we're going to see 7, 8, 9 under win it. I think the weather is going to play a little bit of a factor. I think the fact that, you know, you and me and the Joe golfer thinks the PGA Championship is a high scoring event or what, or a low scoring event, whatever you want to, whatever word you want to use for it. But
right.
I think the renovations they've made, and not just the fact they've changed the course, but like you said, I was just reading a quote from Spieth, but he said that he thinks this is going to be the toughest rough that they've played in this year, not just in majors, but all year long. He says he doesn't think it's getting the credit that the others do. Like, you go into the British Open, the Open Championship, and you expect, you know, narrow fairways, some wide open areas, but then like the long, tall fescue, like, you know it's coming, right? The British Open. The U.S. Open is known for its very thick, high rough right off of the fairways. And, well, this year none of those courses really seem to eat the players up. It sounds like, based on these practice rounds, these guys are like, you might not want to underestimate, you know, what's lurking if you're not accurate off the tee, and then if you're not accurate in trying to get greens in regulation, because the rough is real. And then I've also heard that the putting surfaces are like glass. It's like the Masters right now. I mean,
well, as long as the rain doesn't affect it. If that rain comes in like they say it's supposed to, it's going to slow that up just a little bit, where they're going to be able to maybe put those balls on it.
It's going to soften it up as well, allow them to come and stick it a little closer, but they're still got to stick it from, like, 175 and 200. And that, for those guys, is going to be, I don't know, maybe that's a 6-7 iron for them, but it's not their normal, 60-degree or 9 iron that they're coming in from, and the ball back. So it's going to be, I guess what I'm saying is, if you got guys that aren't good with their irons, that aren't good ball strikers, up and down their bag, I think they're the ones that are going to struggle even more than they would have just coming into this event, because the rain is going to lengthen it that much more. So be prepared for a bomb show. Be prepared to watch DJs at the top, Rory's at the top. I think JB Holmes is another good one who just bombs it out there.
Yep.
I think you're going to see those type of guys. And as long as JB and others like him that aren't as, well known as the DJs of the world, it's going to be those that are good par 4 scorers that can come in from 175 and give themselves at least a shot to knock a birdie putt down here and there, and avoid the bogeys. Avoid the bogeys at all costs. So.
Yeah, and we're talking about the weather. We don't want to make people understand it's not going to be like a pour down fest for 4 days. It's just that there's going to be spotty thunderstorms where, you could get a 2-hour delay with torrential rains, and then the sun comes out for 3-4 hours. So, it's all going to depend. I think when I looked at the weather, the first tee times off tomorrow are going to have a chance of a 30-40% storm, and then at about 9 o'clock, it's going to clear till about 2 o'clock. So that early group, the earliest group, might have some problem with weathers, but then that tee time after that, probably about the 8:30 to 2 o'clock range, those guys are going to be able to, have a decent course. And then once the afternoon comes, there could be a couple delays depending on that weather. So, and that's sort of the unsettled weather they're looking for this weekend there at Quail Hollow. So do you want to talk a little bit about your picks for your fantasy, or do you want to talk about top 5 players that we have? Which one do you want to go with?
Well, I mean, I'll throw the guys out there that I think, if you go online right now and are able to get these bets, I think they're value bets. I think they're the chances of them winning are greater than the chances that the bookmakers are offering at this point, or at least in that range. I'll work backwards. I'll go long shots first and leave my favorites at the beginning. But some of my long shots I like James Hahn, who's had success at Quail Hollow.
Right.
He's $22.50 to 1, meaning if you put $100 down, you're looking at $22,500. He's a long shot, but I like him. He also usually plays well in star-studded fields. So, he's going to struggle. All these guys at the bottom end of the bottom end of the spectrum are going to struggle to make the cut because of how star-studded this is. If he makes the cut, I like his chances.
And he did pretty good at the British Open too, if I recall.
Yeah, he was the one that replaced Sneds. He ended up fading down the stretch, but
he still had a hot start.
Yeah. So I also like Kyle Stanley. Kyle Stanley is what they call the stat guru's boy. I mean, he does everything well. He drives well. He ball strikes well. Not the best putter, but he's just got to put it together for an entire tournament. So what he'll do is he'll have the best round in the world ball striking tomorrow, and then he'll come out and have the best round in the world driving the next day. And the other sides will be mediocre, not bad. But in the end, it adds up that this guy overall, his tee to green game, meaning from off the tee to get into the green, is as good as anyone's in golf. And he's at $17.50 to 1. So, 17,500 will be your reward if you put $100 down and he wins. And I think he's live. I think Louis Oosthuizen and I got at 12.50 to 1. I think he's live. And then I mentioned I mentioned some bombers earlier, and I got JB Holmes 80 to 1. Super long off the tee. He's a pretty good ball striker, and he's one of the best par 4 scorers out there, meaning that, he doesn't give up bogeys all that often on par 4s. His blow-ups are usually par 3s, and sometimes we even get in trouble par 5s when he goes for it when he shouldn't. But, since we're at a heavy par 4 course and a long par 4 course, I like him at 80 to 1. I'm going to call him your boy. I don't know if he really is, but Tommy Fleetwood, who we're all about coming off the U.S. Open into the British Open.
Oh, I pulled back. I didn't choose him for anything and any fantasy stuff. I pulled back on him.
I know. You did. The U.S. Open, I think he was something like 100 to 1 to go into the U.S. Open. He finished in like top 5. And then when he came out of that, because he was playing in his home course, the books and the bettors suddenly, especially the what do you call it, the rookie bettors, the novice bettors, were betting this guy, and he got down to as low as like 22 to 1. I mean, that's ridiculous. Tommy Fleetwood isn't that good.
No.
He's a good golfer, but no, he doesn't deserve 22 to 1. Anyway, this week, he's being devalued again because he's not at the British Open. He's not at Birkdale's home course, and he's 70 to 1. So I like him. I think he's got the intestinal fortitude to be there. He's good off the tee, and he's got some experience now in back-to-back majors in which he's made the cut. So 70 to 1, not a super long shot, but I like that. And then my two favorites to win it. I mean, I already talked about Rory. It's Rory's tournament, but I can't imagine betting Rory at 7 to 1.
Right.
That feels like betting a win. It feels like betting a win-loss on a Sunday on football. It's like, I'm going to take the Steelers to win or lose. It feels like if you're taking Rory at 7 to 1, it's like, I need Rory or nothing else, because at 7 to 1, the odds just aren't great.
Right.
So I've got Adam Scott, one of the best ball strikers on tour, and a very good driver. He can't putt to save his life.
No, he can't putt. He's got to putt this week.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can put it within a couple, if you can put a number of them within a couple 6, 7 feet, I feel like he can knock down a couple. And his putting's been better recently. It's still not good, but I like Scott at 40 to 1. 40 to 1, you put $100 down.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And then my pick to win it, I'm picking to win the whole thing, is my boy John Rahm. I'm saying he's doing it. I'm saying he's super long off the tee. He's a great par 4 scorer like JB Holmes. He has the pedigree as far as he's won some tournaments already. He hasn't won the majors, but he's won some tournaments this year. He's finished in the top 5. And his form recently, I want to say he won the Scottish Open, and he finished like top 5 at another tournament right around like the Irish Open. I got to look, but the guy's playing well, and he's got all the stats that marry up to say that he's going to do it. So at 28 to 1. I'll take a shot at him. Yeah, he finished first at the Irish Open. Then he went up with T44 for the Open Championship. Really struggled in that second round. Was mediocre last week. Before that, he was 10th. He was 10th in the tournament. He was second in the tournament. He was 4th in the tournament. The Wells Fargo, he was 4th at. So I like Rahm. Rahm's my pick to win it, and he's my shortest odds pick or whatever. I'm taking
Gotcha.
28-1. How about you? You betting on anybody this weekend? You're gonna drive to Charlotte? And let these guys know you have money riding. I'm
gonna call my bookie. I'm gonna tell him put about $1,000 on. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe my long shot here. No, I don't have the money to do that, unfortunately. But Brendan Steele is a long shot for me. He has done pretty well at the Wells Fargo in the past 3, 4, 5 years. And again, I know they've changed things, but I'm going with some of these guys who have played real well in this competition. And the Wells Fargo is it's one of those tournaments throughout the year that you do get a lot of players playing in. So it's not just one of these, again, the RBC Classic or whatever. It's one that these guys have had to play in. So when you're looking at top 10, top 20 finishes in the last 5 to 6 years, these guys have got to play well to be there. So Brendan Steele, he's 100 to 1. I like the long shot. Don't think he's going to win. But he's
1,500 to 1.
1,500 to 1. Good Lord. What was I looking at then?
I don't know what you're looking at, but
I have no clue.
If you put 100 on him and he wins, you win $15,000.
Okay, well, I'm sorry everybody out there. This is what I got last night, and I was looking. So let Dan fix me up here with what I'm doing. My other odd long shot, and
Steele finished 14th and 9th the last 2 Worlds.
Yeah, and I like that, and if you have some guys that are not playing to par, like the Roys, like the Hideckis, all those guys, then maybe someone like this could step up his game at a course that he is relatively familiar with. The other guy, and this just comes in, I believe in momentum, and I believe in things carrying week to week. I know he's not a bomber, but I think he is a good, solid player. Now my odds have him 50-1, but Zach Johnson, I think he has a strong shot to be up in that top 10, and maybe if some of these other guys, start slipping, that maybe he can get up in there, that top 5, and maybe sneak into that number 1 spot.
So you got it at 50-1. He's actually 70-1. So all these guys are actually better price than you have.
Okay, well, 70-1 is a lot better. I can't even tell you the website I was at, but it was a Vegas betting website, and that's what they had. So you can see that I'm not the better on this podcast, guys. It's Dan that does it, so I'm a very novice person when it comes to betting. But anyways, those are my 2 long shots: Brendan Steele and Zach Johnson. Now, when you're talking about my top 5, I've got to go with Ghosts of the U.S. Open, and I've got to go back to Brooks Koepka. When you're talking about long courses, he's proven, and he's made me think a little differently since I would say at the U.S. Open I really disliked him. He's proven that he can stand in toe-to-toe. He played pretty solid at the British Open. Again, won the U.S. Open. This is a long course. My odds that I looked at were 16-1. What do you have?
He's 22-1.
Okay, so I think 22-1 for him to come in there and take 2 majors in 1 year. If he does that, definitely would change my mind about him.
I like Koepka a lot. This tournament, I just felt like I thought he's too expensive. 22. I thought 22. I thought he should have been in the Rahm realm. So too much for me.
So my number 4, he was a 25-1. So check me on that. But Justin Rose, he's just had
Rose is 40-1.
40, okay, 40-1. And again, I checked these on Tuesday. So overnight they could have changed. I don't know. Justin Rose has had a really good year. He barely, he what was it? The Masters that he came through in at the end and barely lost to Sergio.
He lost in the playoff, right?
Yeah, so he's had a very solid season, and he's another one of those guys that, he has a major, but by this time you would think maybe he'd have a couple majors. So again, 40-1, I think that's another good shot to pick somebody to be there. Number 3, again, I know what we said on this. He's not like the long ball striker, but I still like him. He's sort of filling my Phil Mickelson need, is Matt Kuchar. He's one of those guys that is getting on in 40, and he hasn't won a major yet.
So Kuch is 70-1. So if you had to pick, you take Kuch over Fleetwood?
Yes.
Okay.
Kuchar over Fleetwood. Again, man, my numbers are off. I had him at 33-1. Whew.
Yeah, wherever you decide to bet down the road, you might want to double.
Yeah, I might want to just call you, Dan. Okay. So anyway, Kuchar, I'm not going to come out with these gaudy stats about Kuchar. I just think he's a solid golfer, and I think that if it comes down to it, maybe he can go head to head and this time pull it out, unlike what he did at the British with Jordan Spieth.
He has not played at the Quail Hollow in the last 5 years, just FYI. So
this is one of those things where I just pulled him out of the air just because I feel probably in the next 4 years I'm going to be picking him in my top 5 of everything because I want him to win so bad.
This is just your gut feel. I love Kuch. Kuch isn't going to collapse. Kuch is not going to collapse on you.
No. But he's not going to blow out the field if it goes 12-13.
And if the weather plays a role at all, he's going to really be behind the 8 ball,
Well, you never know if the weather is, if it's doing something crazy and they got to play out in it. It could be like the British Open. You never know. Number 2, my runner-up here, and again, I'm just going with, what's happened in the prior weeks. I do like Hideki. I think he's got a strong shot to come in here. Now, I had him at 18-1. What do you have?
He's 12-1.
12-1. Okay, well, close. But again, I think, like he said, with your Rory pick, it's sort of like too close for you to put any money down that at 12-1. So
depends how many bets you're going to put out there and for what what level. If you're going to put $100 bets out there for 7 players, and Rory wins, well, Rory covers your other bets,
Right, and I just like I said, guys coming into the tournament prior to a major. I like the way that they're setting up their game because they're preparing well to be what they need to be doing for that next week. So hopefully this is just seamless for him. He wins on Sunday, comes in Thursday, and just starts knocking the ball around like he did.
we talked about his form, and then also at the Wells Fargo, his last 3 starts there, he's been 11th, 20th, and 38th. So he's made the cut all 3 times, and he's got 2 top 20s, and he almost broke the top 10 last year. So
right.
he should be set up okay. We already know he's set up statistically for the course, but also familiarity with the course.
And shockingly, I am not going with my boy, my fave, Ricky
Fowler.
I would really love for him to see it. He's not even in my top 5. He just very much disappointed me at the prior, 2 tournaments because I really thought he had shots there, and I think he's going to need to regroup and come back next year. But I'm going chalk. I like Rory. I think he wins this straight out. I don't think he's going to come out tomorrow and be your leader. He's going to hover around probably top 15. Not many people are going to be looking at it. But then I think Friday, Saturday, he's going to make that charge to put him either in the second to last or the last grouping. And I'm really hoping it comes down to a Spieth and Rory matchup on Sunday where they're 1 or 2 strokes and we really can see a duel that we haven't seen probably since, Tiger has been around. And I really think that's what golf needs. They need to see some sort of rivalry picked up in one of these majors or one of these strong tournaments to sort of quench the thirst, in the post-Tiger, era of golf. So, I think Roy wins it.
It has some validity too. Like we want that, right? We want Phil Tiger head to head on a Sunday, right? We want Jordan Roy. But that said, again, if we're judging, we can't judge the present on what the past gave us all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I said that last week, right?
I'm just saying. So we're lucky now because we have DJ and we have Rory and we have Jordan and who else? And Decky and Fowler. And, Rahm's not there yet, but, you have these guys up there, really, you might have a group of 5 guys who aren't slouches at all. They're all otherworldly players.
And I'm starting to see that. Just talking about it is getting me excited because you're right. You've got all these guys that are between 23 and 30 that okay, someone like myself and yourself, we're a little bit older, we have to change our mindset. It's sort of like our fathers when they watch golf. They had to change their mindset from Arnie and Jack to Phil and Tiger. Well, we're having to change our mindset from Phil and Tiger to these young guys. And you're right. If these next 10, 15 years are giving us the Hideki's, the Rickies, the Rorys, those guys, I think golf is in a really good place.
Oh, I think golf's in a great place.
It's fantastic. And I think for guys like us that want to sit there and watch these big tournaments or see what happens, it's going to be fun. And, you pick your guy, like I said, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I became a Ricky guy. He's my man. I just don't think it's going to happen this year. But when he wins, tears will fall out of my eyes as they did when Tiger and Phil won because he's the guy I'm going with. He's the guy I'm riding with. So
I like Ricky a lot too. He's grown on me, especially since I've watched him this summer. And I knew, I think was it last year? He was tied for 5th or
in every tournament,
every
major.
Every major.
Yep.
And so I'm calling you out, but I'm not really calling you out. But you just said, he's kind of disappointed you this year,
right?
And this is what I'm saying. This is what "quote unquote" disappointment is nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
He just finished 9th at the Bridgestone. He finished tied for 22nd at the British. He finished tied for 5th at the U.S. Open. He finished tied for 11th at the Masters and T2 at the Memorial, which is another huge.
Exactly. And what did he do at the Players? Probably was high up there too.
The Players, I want to say he didn't do as well at the Players, but he made the cut.
Right.
T60. He struggled on Sunday with a 79. But bottom line is he makes the cut in all the big ones, and he finishes
he's there.
Top 10 or better in pretty much all of them, if not top 5.
And he's going to break through. He's going to break through.
And this might be the one. I mean, I'm semi rooting for Ricky, but I don't have him in anything. I'm not taking him from a betting perspective, and I'm not taking him in any of my lineups. That if you're looking at it real quick, I don't have him in any of my lineups. So if he does it, he's gonna bite me profit wise. But I do like Ricky, and I think he's live as hell this weekend. I mean, the PGA Championship.
It's wide open. It's not like there's
exactly. It's wide open.
Even though they do say Rory is the out favorite, I still think that
I mean, but he's 7-1. We said, and Spieth's 7.5 to 1. So they're it's co-favorites really, and Spieth is not anywhere near Rory's statistics with the driver, which I know it isn't all of it. But when we talk about length, Spieth is 68th in the current field in driving distance, and he's not good in accuracy. So this, I think, is a good fade of Spieth this weekend.
But I would take Jordan's putting over everybody else because his putting has been phenomenal.
But if 9 or 10 under is going to win it, he's going to have to give himself some putts. And if he's hitting, 280, he's not 280, but if he's hitting 300 and DJ's hit 340, and then, that said, Spieth's iron game is maybe the best in the world. So
right.
He can make up for it the other side, but it's easier to hit a long driver accurately, but easier to hit the long driver than it is to hit a 195 approach shot within 6 feet of the cup. So
right.
I'm fading Spieth this weekend, but they're both co-favorites.
So I want to go into our lineups here. I gave Dan 4 lineups since I'm away on vacay, and also he's sort of my bookie now when it comes to daily fantasy, just because I know zero, and I sort of say, here's a few bucks, win something for me. But I came up with 4.
Bookie, by the way, for all the legal listeners out there, bookie is not the correct term. I'm not taking your
No, he's not taking my money
out. I'm putting in lineups for you on a
legally, 100% legally
fantasy site. You don't have an account. So yeah, you gave me 4 lineups, and you gave me a budget of $13 a lineup.
There you go. Okay, let me make sure that's you make sure that's clear because we don't want to get in trouble for anything. So anyways, I've got a lineup consisting of, there were 3 guys that I looked at that I wanted to put either in all of my lineups or somewhere in all of my, like at least 2 of the 3. And they were Gary Woodland, Brendan Steele, and, who was my last guy? James Hahn. Those were 3 guys that I wanted in almost all of my lineups, and the reason was because they have played well, especially Woodland and Steele, at these events here at Quail Hollow. And the good thing is you had a Gary Woodland coming in at 6,700, which was, you could put a couple guys that you really liked expensive-wise up top, and then you could pull these Gary Woodlands. The other guy was Brendan Grace, too, but he was a little more expensive. So anyways, my number 1 lineup that I have is I have Brendan Grace, Brandon Grace.
Name right for when he wins a major?
Yeah, Brandon Grace, Brendan Steele, Gary Woodland, James Hahn, Justin Rose, and then my anchor is Rory. And I think that put me exactly at 50,000, maybe at 49.
You're at 100 below, yeah. So you had
49.
Rory, Rose, Hahn, Grace, Steele. So you basically, when you constructed these lineups, were you basically constructing based off of course history and then putting studs at the top of it that you thought, going to win?
Yeah, so I took guys that I was just thinking, and this came from sort of your thinking before with the British, some of these guys who are lower down on the totem pole there, but aren't going to probably win, but are going to fill out your lineup and maybe be in the top 20, maybe be in the top 15, based on something.
As long as they all make the cut, you have a realistic shot of
exactly. Right. And I think, I got a feeling that if they did well in the last couple of years, they should continue to have some success. So that's one of my lineups. Another lineup consists of Grace again, Steele, Woodland, and then I switched out with Tony Finau, Finau. He's a hot name this week. A lot of people like him. He's done very good at this tournament the last couple of years. He's 7,000, so I put him in. And then I added...
So, real quick, we talked about, another game theory strategy is you got to talk about ownership, right?
Uh-huh.
How highly owned you expect these guys to be. Because if you take a guy who's expected to be 30% owned and he does really well, then you're right there with the other 30% of lineups, which you need to be, right? But if he bombs, then yours and the other 30% of lineups are going to bomb with it, and everyone who avoided him is in a much better spot. Right?
Exactly.
So Finau is expected to be one of the most higher owned players at 19%. Woodland is expected to be the highest owned player in the below 7,000. He's the highest owned at 10.8% right now. So just giving the perspective of ownership,
So I guess that helps me out, not betting a lot, that at least I'm picking guys that other people are looking at also, so I'm not on the wrong track.
No, I agree.
Right.
You're on the right track.
But yeah, I understand. You have to go against the grain sometimes to make sure that you come out with that winning lineup. Number 2, I came out with Phil. Phil was another guy that I had to have in a lot of my lineups. Unfortunately, I could only fit him into one. He was at 8,500. I think that, he doesn't have the greatest shot at winning, but he plays well here, so he might be able to sneak up there. And then my number 1 in that lineup would be Spieth. So I took Rory and Spieth in 2 separate lineups.
I got you as Phil, Spieth, Steele, Woodland, Grace, and Finau in that lineup.
Right, and then
with 300 left on the table.
And then my third lineup, I put James Hahn in there. Woodland again. And then I put Charlie Hoffman in this lineup. He's another guy who a lot of people are liking this week. Jonathan Vegas, he won if I recall, he won the Canadian Open, correct?
Correct.
And
back to back. His
yeah,
second year in a row.
So he's coming off of a relatively hot last couple of rounds of golf.
He's only projected a 3% ownership too. So if you get him to make the cut, you're really
that'd be great. And then I came in with two big bombers. I was able to put Rory and Hideki in that one. So if some of those guys, if Hoffman can play, if Vegas can go ahead and make that cut and maybe get up there, then that one looks like it might be good.
So just FYI, when I said Finau was supposed to be one of the most owned one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rory is expected to be the most owned player.
Right.
He's supposed to be on 1/3 of lineups, 33% of lineups.
And I've got him in 2 of my 4, so I'm close.
Yeah, with Decky, Fowler, and Daniel Berger being on like the 22 to 24% lineups.
Right. So then my last one, I went with a guy that you hipped me to, so I will give you all the credit if I win in this one. $5,000, $500, whatever the heck, I'll give you a piece of it. But Jordan Jordan Smith. I'm sorry, I put Small down. Jordan Smith. Anyways, you told me to go with him.
He's an English dude who just won in the Porsche European Open, and he's been playing really well in the European Tour. And he's just so cheap, and he's a big bomber.
That's what you were saying. He's a large, be able to hit that ball pretty long. And then Luton, I took him also. That was another recommendation. That you were talking about. Put Vegas in that one also. And then I was able, since I went with 3 6,500 guys, I was able to come up with 3 big bombers. I went with Koepka, Hideki, and then in that one, Ricky anchors that lineup. So I'm pretty happy with the lineups. I like what I've done there, and I think that I've got a bunch of guys that are going to all be able to make the cut, and I think Saturday and Sunday are going to be pretty fun for me to watch some golf.
Yeah, I mean, you're in 3 GPPs, which means you're in guaranteed prize pools, in which you're hoping that these guys, rise to the top. That essentially you have like the first, the second, the fifth, the seventh, and the 10th place guy, and then you can win a couple thousand and tens of thousands of dollars. You're not going to win the Millionaire Makers since you didn't enter.
No.
And then you're in 1 double up for each of, which essentially just means finishing the top half of those tournaments, and you double your money. So I think it's in a $5 one, so you're looking at, trying to get 10 back.
And all this money is going to go to my daily fantasy football sweat during the season.
Right, or when like 2 of these guys miss the cut on each lineup, and then you just lose all your money, then you won't have anything in football.
Let's hope that doesn't happen, because the wife's not thrilled.
Whatever, it's $30 or whatever it is. Calm down. You're going to the PGA Championship in a day. So.
Yeah, I wish.
All right. Well,
so what do you got going on for fantasy lineups?
Yeah, I did 3 lineups. One of them I constructed as my cash lineup, which means I think it's going to be highly owned players, but I think a better chance of making the cut with not as much upside combined with low ownership. And that, what I mean by that is I'm putting that in more double ups and more head to head, so that I can just make lighter amount of money on, but it's more reliable. It's just less reliable in the big prize pool because these guys are going to be owned by everybody, right? That said, I still throw this lineup in the GPPs because if for some reason I pick the perfect lineup and these guys finish 1 through 6 in the tournament and it's not in the GPP, I'll kill myself because then I'll just forfeited, $150,000, $1 million. So anyway, in that cash lineup, Paul Casey, who's been as good as anybody on tour this year, I don't know that he's actually won a tournament, but he's in the top 5 or top 10 every week. And that's what you need in a cash lineup, right? Like you need a guy who's going to give you 4 good rounds, and that's what Casey does over and over again. And for $7,800, I'll take that. Daniel Berger, I love Daniel Berger. He's $7,700. He's finished second with the Travelers. He would have won that if Spieth didn't hold out from that bunker shot. He won the St. Jude this year. He finished tied for 5th at the John Deere. He just finished tied for 17th at WGC. He played well at the Open Championship. He made the cut at the Players. He finished T27 at the Masters. He did not make the cut at the U.S. Open. But other than the U.S. Open, he's played extremely well. So another guy who should make the cut, who's familiar with the course. So I'm expecting him to play 4 rounds. Kevin Chappell with 7,000. A great ball striker, a great driver. He's expected to be highly owned. So I've it was more just I want to get him in my lineup so that if he does well, everybody in my double ups has him. I have him too. If he doesn't do well, it doesn't hurt me that much because everyone's going to have him, right? Like,
yeah, he was a guy that I looked at too, but he was a
just didn't make it.
He was a hot name too. That you're right.
Yeah.
It looked like everyone was picking.
And that's what you do in cash games. Because what happens is, again, if he misses the cut and you don't get those stats from him,
right?
Not everybody, but 70% or 60% of the guys in your league or your tournament are the same way. So you're not really hurt by that. But you also, if you have a guy that's 60% owned and they make the cut and you don't have him, you could be in real trouble by not having him. So anyway, Tony Finau, but no, I can never get his name right. He's another one. He's another one I put in there. Again, supposed to be highly owned.
But let me pause you real quick. I want to go back to what you said about Spieth and Berger. It was funny. Spieth holds that out. If he doesn't hold it out and Berger wins, who knows what would have happened and changed at the British Open, because we both were talking about Berger going into the British Open. So the swing of one club, the ball going in, a fantastic close, just sort of changes the whole atmosphere of the last month of golf.
Well, also, I mean, I know these guys are really good at around the green. Spieth's pretty good in general around the green. But like you and I, if we had a bunker shot, God, we're just hoping we get the ball in the green, right? I know that's not how they play. But there's so many sand shots that we see even from the pros that end up, 30 feet away from the hole.
Yep.
So when he's there hitting his third shot from the sand and Berger's putting for his third shot. Now granted, Berger's third shot was like a 40-foot putt. You're thinking, well, Berger's got the leg up here, right? Berger 2 putts, he's parring. Spieth has to put this close and then tap in or have a decent putt, and then we go to the next hole. Instead, Spieth freaking holes out, and then Berger has to make a 40-footer just to tie, which he couldn't do. So yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I watched that live. I mean, I don't want to say pissed. I was just like, because I'm not a Spieth guy.
Exactly.
And I love Berger. I think he's one of those guys that when I watch him and just listen to his interviews, he wants to murder everybody on tour. I don't mean like physically, but I mean he wants to beat you. And
kill people. Yeah.
He wants to go 25 under the PGA while everyone else is trying to just make par. He wants to murder and embarrass people. I love it. I mean, I love the killer instinct. So. Anyway, to move on from that, like I said, I have him, Casey, Chaplin, Finau. And then I was able to put Rory, who's going to be chalk. But a cash lineup, good. And then Adam Scott, who I think is going to finish really well based off, I told you earlier, at 40-1, I think he's a good shot just to win the tournament. So those are my 6 guys. I think they're all going to make the cut. I don't know that that's going to win the GPPs, though, because if they don't finish 1 through 6, these guys are all going to be highly owned with other combinations of like Jonathan Vegas or James Hahn or stuff like that, that are lower owned and take down GPP. So anyway, my other 2 lineups are not in any cash games, not in any double ups, not in any head to heads, nothing like that. They're all GPP plays. And I focused on 2 different things when I picked these lineups. One, length and like the approach we talked about 175 to 200. Okay, that's going to be so important. And then 2, course history. If you're good at this course, I still think it's going to translate to this year, even with the changes. So lineup number 2, I went with, going from top to bottom, I went with Decky. I took John Rahm. I took Brooks Koepka. And then at my scrub side I went Gary Woodland, Molinari, who's playing well and has course history, and Danny Lee, same thing, playing pretty well with course history. So I expect lower ownership with Molinari and Lee. And I expect lower ownership with Rahm and Koepka compared to their price tiers, the other guys in their tier.
Now, the other thing that some of the experts were coming out and saying was that they said, if Royal Birkdale crowns the kings of golf, that Quail Hollow crowns the princes of golf. And typically, the high, named guys, top 20 guys, typically win here. So it's kind of harder for those Gary Woodlands, the Hans, the Steels to come up and win, when on the flip side, we're probably going to see somebody from the top 10 in, the FedEx point standings or the money, standings probably going to win, so
I
take a look at that.
Too, but I think what you got to hope for, like the Woodlands and the Molinaris of the world, you want them again, like any of these players, whether you're betting on them to win a tournament or you put them in DraftKings, what you're betting on is that they have a somewhat late tee time on Sunday, right? That's what you're hoping for. You're trying to identify those guys, and then just let the chips fall where they may, DFS golf is such a roller coaster ride, right? Because if Molinari eagles a hole, his DraftKings points go so high up, and if he's lowly owned, all of a sudden you're looking at, oh my God, I'm in third place and I'm winning $150,000. But then the next hole he bogeys, and James Hahn, who you don't have on that lineup, birdies it. It changes things by tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So again, get your guys to Sunday and hope that they can just play well on Sunday. They don't have to necessarily close.
Right.
One of your chalk plays is what you're probably going to need to close, your Hideki Matsuyamas or your Rahms or your Koepkas. But the other guys, you just need to be there. So anyway, that was GPP lineup 1. And my second GPP lineup, same type of construction here. I have Rahm again. I have Koepka again. I do not have Decky on this one. Instead, I went with Adam Scott. I went with Mark Leishman and J.B. Holmes, who I mentioned earlier. And then I have my punt player, whatever you want to call it, my low-owned guy is Ross Fisher, who's been playing well at these.
Yeah, I saw Ross Fisher. He's the Englishman, right?
Yeah, he plays well at the high-profile courses. He's also a bomber. He finished, 44th at the Open, 44th at WGC. He did not make the cut at the U.S. He finished tied for T22 at the Memorial. The BMW finished T9. So he's got the ability to be at the top. That's all I need. I just need a top 15, a top 20 out of him. If he can creep in the top 10, I'm making bank. So those are my 3 lineups. Again, I focused on course history as a significant weighted factor, and then distance off the tee, and then the ability to go tee to green with the long irons. When I say long irons, when I play tomorrow, I'm playing at either Waverly or Diamond Ridge tomorrow. We're trying to figure it out.
Uh-huh.
For me, a long iron is a 4-iron, right? Like a 4-iron from 200 yards out, because I'm a puss.
Right.
But these guys, a long iron might be like a 6, because they're not used to hitting the 6-irons or the 5-irons. They do hit them, but it's not.
That's like their tweener clubs they normally don't use.
Right. So when they get stuck in those positions that they may have to hit that, I think those are the ones, the 175, 200 is where you're going to see some of this separation, J.B. Holmes getting it to 330 out there and DJ getting it to 330. Okay, well then who can hit the 6-iron, and we'll see. I mean, they're those are good. It's a good example. They're both good at it. JB's a little better actually from that distance. But then who does it? Who sticks it within 12 feet and gives themselves a chance at par, birdie par opportunities? And
I think that it's regardless whether we're betting or not. I think it's going to shape up for an interesting. It's not going to lack excitement. I think for the weekend, golf watchers.
Wait. So tomorrow I'm golfing.
I'll be at Quail Hollow tomorrow. It looks like tickets are $85.
There's 0% chance you're going to Quail Hollow.
6.5 hour drive.
How long is it?
6.5 hour. I'd have to leave at 2 a.m. to make sure I get there by the 8 o'clock tee times.
You should definitely do this. Why would you not do this? If it's going to rain all week, and it's $85.
Don't worry, I'm going to go right up and tell the wife. I'm going to say, hey, I'm out tomorrow. I'm getting a hotel in Charlotte, and that's that.
just do one day. Just say you've done it.
F it, it's my vacation.
And go follow Fowler around or whatever.
So, anyways, that's with the golf. What's going on with the dessert bracket here? We need to wrap this up. Wrap it up. Send it along its way. What was it? Apple pie versus milkshakes?
Yeah. Why do you seem so anticlimactic? Just because we're not it's just because it's not the first round of the tournament. Just because you get all geeked about Thursday.
I do. I'm a Thursday Friday tournament guy, and then once the championship comes, I'm like, let Carolina win it.
Once it's North Carolina and Villanova, you don't care anymore.
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, so we had milkshakes and apple pie, and thankfully, apple pie finally went down.
Yes! Yes!
Yeah, so we had 52 voters. That's pretty cool. So we're getting there. I'd like to get to 100 at some point.
That would be good, yeah.
But milkshakes, 40 of the 52 votes, so a 77 to 23 advantage. Milkshakes win. You can choose your strawberry, vanilla, chocolate, cookies and cream. It doesn't matter. Milkshakes trump. But I actually talked to a buddy yesterday on the phone. He's been voting in the bracket every single time.
Nice.
And he's like, is milkshakes really a dessert? And I was like,
hell yeah, it's a dessert.
Yeah, we didn't debate it. I was like, well, where would you place it? I was like, it's not part of a meal. It's not, it's not part of dinner. It's not a drink. It's not candy. Where would you place it? He's like, nah, it's definitely dessert. He's like, I just don't normally have it, after dinner or whatever. We have it, we stop somewhere on the way home and just get a milkshake. But he agreed. He voted for milkshake all the way through.
Your milkshake brings all the boys to the yard,
Yeah, he said he would slit throats for a milkshake.
Oh my, yeah. So, well, good. So everyone will have to pay attention to our next bracket. It might be that quarterback bracket. I think that one will be a very fun one.
It might be. We argue too much about quarterbacks. We have to come up with something more fun, I think.
I love the arguing. Speaking of quarterbacks, in the next couple of weeks, looking forward to football ramping up. Looking forward to that AFC predictions that we need to finish, and then we'll start talking fantasy. I already had my first mock draft today. It was a complete S show because I'll be honest with you, I don't know who to frickin' pick. I'm at a loss. So,
well, you should have taken Wentz in the second or third round. I mean, he's going to be the highest scoring quarterback of the year. So,
well, I think Christian McCaffrey's going to go number 1, so I better get on top of that.
You can't say his name right. You're the worst.
McCaffrey? Why don't? Because I don't care.
I know you don't care.
All right, we got to get out of here, boys and girls. It is about time for me to go jump in that pool because the rain has stopped.
I think I might go buy my kids a milkshake right now.
Good, go do it. Be a good dad and go buy them a milkshake. All right, everybody. Have fun. Watch that PGA. Enjoy yourselves, and we will talk to you later in the den with your boy, Dan and Mike.